I'm recording. Well, so we will start with a quotation which indicates the deception of the dictatorship all over the world. I mean, any totalitarian regime usually deceives people by creating events, by changing history, by inventing history, by inventing victories, and by inventing fictional heroes. So this quotation, it shows that the regime of the Big Brother is a totalitarian regime, like all other totalitarian regimes in the world. And I mean, the Big Brother or the regime deceived people, right? By what? By creating or changing history. So at the bottom of the page, we will find, right? I mean, the speaker here is, right, our hero. He says, while to invent victory at the front or some triumph of overproduction in the ninth three-year plan. Look at this sarcastic. يعني في الخطة الثلاثية التاسعة. الخطة الثلاثية التاسعة يعني إيش؟ يعني that they made in production, overproduction. صار في عندهم زيادة في الإنتاج في الخطة الثلاثية التاسعة. يعني ال 21 سنة يعني. Okay, might be, right, might complicate the records too much. What was needed was a piece of a pure fantasy. So they wanted to make a kind of pure fantasy in order to deceive people with what? By a victory, by creating new heroes, by making progress economically speaking, or whatsoever. Suddenly, there sprang into his mind, ready-made as it were, the image of a certain comrade. So what came to his mind? To create a new comrade. His name is Ogilvy. Ogilvy, and he gave him a name. Of course, there is no hero called Ogilvy, but he is going to create him. Why? Because in the name, I mean, in the word that does not have heroism, they have to create fictional heroes. Why? But actually, at the time of the totalitarian regime, we don't have heroes. We have either dictators, tyrants, and oppressed people. But the tyrants or the oppressed people, they usually create fictional heroes, fictional victory, fictional right economic progress, but why? To deceive people. These are the same ways of deceiving people all over the world, right? This comrade who had recently died in the battle in heroic circumstances. So he made what? A hero, and this hero, right, was died in the battle bravely, made in heroic circumstances in order to make it as a model for the people. But actually, the people, they don't have a real model because all the existing characters are corrupt, futile tyrants. Well, let's go to page number 63. Right, showing the real circumstances of dictatorships. While they are making fictional progress in and plenty in the production, but actually people are hardly finding razor blades. زي ما احنا بنقول بالعربي معلوم مش يحلقوا. Why? Because keeping them only on the line, on the verge of what we call it poverty. They have nothing to think of except what to eat tomorrow. What to eat tomorrow. By this way, they wouldn't have in their mind any space for revolting or having other ideas than what to eat tomorrow. So everyone kept asking for razor blades. كل اللي في البلد كانوا بدوروا على شفرات، ما فيش شفرات. طيب وإذا كان ما فيش شفرات، هو بس شفرات حلاقة ما فيش عندهم. Actually he had two unused ones. كان في تنتين جداد عنده which he was hoarding up مخبيهم. There had been a famine of them for months past. ما فيش ولا شفرة. famine يعني كانت قحط لشهور ما فيش عندهم اوكي شفر حلاق. And this is the technique used by what? Dictatorship. Look at this. At any given moment, there was some necessary article which the party shops were unable to supply. كل مرة بخبوا، يوم ما فيش غاز، يوم ما فيش كهرباء، يوم ما فيش بندورة، يوم ما فيش right? At a certain moment there was a necessary article which the party shops. هذا عشناه احنا في غزة لما كانوا يمارسوا علينا نفس السياسة، سواء من الضفة الغربية أو من عند اليهود. مرة نفكر في الغاز، مرة نفكر في البنزين، مرة نفكر في سولار تبع الكهرباء، مرة نفكر في sometimes it was buttons. بعد مرات بتلاقي السوق ما فيش فيه ايش؟ زراعة. Sometimes it was right darning wool. ما فيش صوف. Sometimes it was shoelaces. ما فيش تبعات رباطات الجزم. At present it was razor blades. حاليا ما فيش عندهم شفر. But this is the technique, a usual technique usually used by dictators in order to keep people asking and in need for something necessary to their daily life, The same technique wherever you go. And no matter, right, okay, how long they will survive, they will continue the same technique. Go to page number 64. We will come in this quotation to talk about the desensitization. A desensitization which is killing people inside, that they are no longer making them human beings. We gave example about desensitization before when they were watching a movie about a ship which is full of women and the children, and they were clapping for the death of these children when they are killed by or shot by the helicopter, right? Now, Simon is one of the colleagues working at the same, ministry. And there was a kind of a hanging for someone that they called him a traitor. طبعا لما يسموا واحد خائن فمعناته ليش خائن؟ لأنه he revolted against the big brother. So they usually hang him. So Simon, the one who made the Newspeak. Simon is the character who created the Newspeak, the new language used in the time of the Big Brother. It was Simon. It was the one who made the dictionary is Simon. So Simon went to watch the hanging of the traitor. So when he came back, right, he said to Winston, what did he say to Winston? Look at this. It was a good hanging. والله كانت شنقة عجب. Which means that he is already desensitized. Then he is going to go to tell you what is good about that hanging and what is bad about it, which shows you that he is not really a good human being, right? He said, I think it spoils it. It spoils the joy. Spoils what? When they tie their feet together. لما يربطوا رجليهم مع بعض اللي بشنقوهم المفروض ما يربطوش رجليهم مع بعض. Okay, the joy will go when they tie their feet together. Why? I like to see them kicking. بدي اشوفهم هم ايه بتفعفلوا. And above all, at the end, the tongue is sticking right out and the blue يطلع لسانه برا وازرق. Quite bright blue. That's the detail that appeals to me. Can you imagine? Is this a human being? I mean, yes, he is coming to a state of desensitization. The actual followers of dictators, they are no longer human beings. They will become a kind of desensitized people. They don't feel. They don't feel. So this a quotation, a second quotation to emphasize, all right, what we called it, the technique of the dictatorships in controlling people, which is desensitization. On page number 65, it will talk about the new speak, or the language which was invented by sign. It is important to us to know what is the function of the new speak, why it was actually created, why we said in order to control the thinking of the people when they don't find, for example, right, expressions like revolution, expressions like dignity, expressions like freedom. They won't think of freedom, of dignity, of revolution. So they are creating a new language, and they call this a new language the new speak, right? And they made the 11th edition of what? Of the Newspeak. So we will talk about the 11th edition, right? The 11th edition of the Newspeak is definitive edition. He said, we are getting the language its final shape. And now he is talking about the language. So I said the 11th edition is the definitive edition. He said, we are getting the language into its final shape. What is the final shape of the new speak? Right, the shape it is going to have when nobody speaks anything else. It is the special language that is going to be used by everyone. When we have finished with that, people like you, right, will have to learn it all over again. He's telling, Winston, you think I dare say that our chief job is inventing new words. So Syme says, I'm inventing new words, but not a bit of it, not half words, but a lot more, a lot of new words. We are destroying words like freedom, like words of dignity, like words revolution, scores of them, hundreds of them every day. We are cutting the language down to the bone. The 11th edition, right, won't contain a single word that will become absolute before 2050, which means that we will control the type of their thinking by the time we reach there, right? Let's come to page number 67, right? Still talking about the Newspeak, and we would like to know what is the purpose of the Newspeak? What is the purpose of the new language? So on page number 67, he says, don't you see the whole aim of the Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought. To narrow the range. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible. And thought crime here means thinking of freedom, thinking of revolting against the big brother. So we will eliminate the thought crime. How? By eliminating the language that has any words which might encourage for doing a thought crime. So we will narrow the range of thought. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible, because there will be no words in which to express it. So it won't have any words to express the thought crime, or what we call it, okay, the words related to freedom and revolution, which is also one of the techniques of tyranny, to control people by controlling their own thought. Well, quotation, another quotation on page number 75. Well, 74, the last first line. By the way, something else that I would like to say, that book 3 is the most important book, I mean, the quotations in book 3, the last book, are the most important quotations, which reflect, right, the struggle between the brutal force and between the freedom, the victim, the freedom, the victim. But still, we are reading from book 1 and book 2, but the most important ones are going to be in book 3, in which, all right, that I'm asking you to read. It is necessary for you to read what is, I mean, the marked quotations again. Marked quotations in this book. Why? Because it will be included in the final exam. Right. So here, another technique, right, of controlling the economic intervention of the dictatorship is in the life of people, like making them live with certain amount of food, certain amount of candies, certain amount of tea, certain amount of sugar. This certain amount of consumption, we call it a ration, right? زي ما بنسميها احنا عندنا هنا في فلسطين، ايش بيسموها الريشن؟ ايش معنات ريشن؟ اللي بيعطوه الوكاله للفقراء، ايش اسمه؟
المؤن.
المؤن، ينور عليك. right? So فبيعيشوهم على ايش؟ على خط الفقر, or what we call it the line of poverty, in order not to think, right? And if we want to make them happy, we will increase the ration. يعني اذا كان مسموح لهم برطل سكر في الاسبوع هذا، اوكي رضيت عنهم، اوكي بدي اعطيكم رطل نص سكر. كل الناس تطلع هي شكرا للسيسي سمع لنا برطل نص سكر. well او شكرا لفلان, right? This is the same thing. And only yesterday نبدأ منها. It appeared that there had been even demonstrations to thank the big brother. كان في مظاهرات يشكروا البيج brother for raising the chocolate ratio, لأنه زاد المؤن أو الكمية المؤن تبع مين؟ تبع الشوكولاتة to 20 grams a week, ل 20 جرام في الأسبوع بس. Okay, فطلعوا يشكروا. And only yesterday he reflected, it had been announced that the ration was to be reduced. بعد ما بدهم يعودوا ينزلوها to 20 grams a week. Was it possible that they could swallow that? How they can swallow 20 grams? طبعا he's being funny. 20 grams of what? Of chocolate. After only 24 hours, yes, they swallowed it. Parsons, which is a family, the family which is followers of the big brother, swallowed it easily with the stupidity of an animal. Their eyeless creatures, right, at the other table swallowed it, okay, fanatically, passionately, with the furious desire to track down, denounce, and deporize anyone who suggest that the last week the ration had been 30 grams. اي واحد بيقول انه كان نزل اوكي نزلت الريشن من 30 جرام ل 20 جرام بيعملوا له تبخير. يعني this is, I mean, can you imagine living in a situation like this, in a country like this? If you want to know it well, like, go and live in Egypt now. You will find that it is the same, okay, type of thinking, the same way of thinking. Right. Let's talk about the freedom of thought. The freedom, we talked about the freedom of eating. Now the freedom of thought on page number 79. It was terribly dangerous to let your thoughts wander when you were in any public place. ممنوع تفكر وانت في مكان عام, or within a range of telescreen, أو حتى قدام التلفزيون. The smallest thing you could give away, أي حاجة بتطلع عنك, a nervatic or unconscious lock of anxiety, habit of muttering to yourself anything that carried with this suggestion of abnormality, of having something to hide. In any case, all right, to wear an improper expression on your face, to look what ridiculous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself punishable offense. يعني لو كشرت وهو الاخ البيج براذر طلع على الشاشه، انت اسمها بسموها face crime. There was even a word for it in the Newspeak. It is face crime. It was cool. يعني لو قلت كلمة غلط، لو كشرت في موقف غلط، لو تمتمت في موقف غلط، it will be called Facebook. Well, we will have another quotation here, right? Written by, on page number 90. Written by whom? Written by, Winston himself. He says that there is no only solution for the situation unless the people rebel. Until they rebel. تقوم ثورة. لكن عنده رأي في الناس إنه الناس كلهم خانعين. فإيش كاتب؟ Until they become conscious, they will never rebel. It means that they can rebel only when they become conscious. كمان مرة طلعوا عليها. Until they become conscious, when people become conscious, right, they will never rebel, which means that they can only rebel if they are conscious. And until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. And until after they have rebelled, look at this, right? وبعد ما بعد ما يثوروا لا يمكن انهم يكونوا واعيين. Cannot become conscious. Do you know how does he reflect about the idea of revolution? Revolution needs consciousness, right? And after they rebel, they cannot become conscious. وحتى لو ثاروا لابد لا يمكن يكونوا في وعي بعد الثوره. الثوره يجب ان تكون الوعي يكون قبل الثوره وليس بعدها. هذا المقصود فيها. المقصود here, right, that they cannot rebel until they become conscious. And if they rebelled, right, already, they will never become conscious. And for that, right, the revolution is going to be a failure. It's going to be a failure. Well, we will go to page 101 at the bottom of the page. Talking about the past and the present and the future, and how significant they are to whom? To Winston. So Winston thinks about history, that's the only thing that he likes, and he is forced to change, right? 1 minute, please. ممكن ان المحاضره تنقطع كمان 5 دقائق. لو انقطعت خليكم هعاود الفتح كمان مره، اوكي، عشان نكمل. ماشي الحال؟ So what was his job? His job was to change the past, but he is in love with the past. So he is actually reflecting about what he's doing. He says the past not only changed, but it changed continuously. What most afflicted him with the scene of a nightmare was that he had never clearly understood why the huge imposture was undertaken. The immediate advantages of falsifying the past were obvious. What are the advantages of falsifying the past? Let's see. But the ultimate motive was mysterious, and he doesn't know what is the motive behind falsifying the past. He took up his pen again and wrote, I understand how, I don't understand why. I understand how they change the past, but I don't understand why they are changing the past. The big brother will tell him why. He wondered, as he had many times wondered before, whether he himself was lunatic and crazy. Perhaps a lunatic was simply a minority of one, right? This is what I'm saying, Danny, which is actually going to change. Right? Lunatic was simply a minority of one, which means that, okay, يعني إنه ممكن يكون الجنون قاصر على اوكي على اقليه مشكله من شخص واحد اللي هو نفسه، لكن هذه حيستخدمها بعد هيك في ايه اوكي في معنى اخر حيكون جميل جدا. At one time it had been a sign of madness to believe that the earth goes round the sun. Today to believe that the past is inalterable, right? لو فكرت انه التاريخ الماضي لا يمكن تغييره فانت مجنون. زي بالضبط لما كانوا يعتبروا انه الارض كرويه. He might be alone in holding that belief, and if alone then lunatic. ولو كان لحاله معناته هو مجنون. But the thought of being a lunatic did not greatly trouble him. The horror was that he might also be wrong. That he might be wrong, that past can be changed. Past can be changed. Let's see. He murmurs on the following page, right? At the bottom of the page starting. The face of O'Brien, not called up by any obviously association, had floated into his mind. He knew with more certainty than before that O'Brien was on his side. Of course, he is being deceived by the outside appearances of faces. All right? O'Brien is not actually on his side. But I mean, he is wrong. This is what he said, right? This is what he said here, right? That the horror was that he might also be wrong. And this is exactly the horror when he saw the face of O'Brien and he thought that O'Brien is with him, right? He was writing the diary for O'Brien, to O'Brien. It was like interminable letter, which no one would ever read, but which was addressed to a particular person and took its color from that fact. Actually, he is writing to the wrong person, right? So he says, right now he is coming to, after he wrote to O'Brien, this actually, right, the meaning of freedom, a quotation which is universally known from this novel. So what does he say? What is freedom? Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. 2 زائد 2 بيساوي 4. إذا بتقدر تقول 2 زائد 2 يساوي 4 فأنت حر. فأنت حر. ليش؟ لأنه the big brother he says 2 plus 2 equals 5. بيساوي 5. ويا ويلك لو قلت بيساوي 4. Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. Which means that احنا احرار من زمان يا شباب. احنا احرار من زمان. Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. Right? If this is granted, all else follows. Right? Well, we'll come to on chapter 8. Well, another quotation related to the meaning of freedom is actually we are going to make a big jump to come to page 130. he still lives the state of deception about O'Brien. He says, he tried with little more success than before to summon up the image of O'Brien. We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness, O'Brien had said to him. طيب لو انقالت هذه لواحد بفكر انه ايش؟ The place with no darkness, it means that okay, the bright future, the future of a freedom. And this is what he thought. But he never knew that the place with no darkness is actually room 101. 101, which is the room of what? The room of terrorizing and vaporization. O'Brien had said to him, he knew that it meant